Okay, so we gotta talk about tomorrow night's hockey game, which is shaping up to be a high-stakes rematch between Canada and the US. But first, we're gonna take a trip with one of our favorite Eat the Rich television shows. Today on Commotion, we're talking about the return of the White Lotus. I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. All right, let's start things off with this. That's theme music from season 3 of The White Lotus. And if you're a fan of the show, you know that each of the seasons are set at a luxury resort in some stunning location in the world. The first season was in Maui, the second in Sicily. This season is in Koh Samui in Thailand. In these beautiful locations, we're embracing an ugliness when wealthy guests clash with hotel staff and even turn on themselves. And by the end of each holiday, someone's gonna be dead. Okay, and season 3 premiered this past weekend on Crave, and I got a couple folks here to talk to me about it. Nicole Froio and Cassie Cao. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you for having
me. Thanks for being here. Listen, let's begin with the opening scene from The White Lotus season 3.
Let the sounds of the external world fade away and focus only on your breath.
Ma'am? Ma'am, that's a gun.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so by now, this is a familiar setup for anyone who watches the show. Every season of White Lotus begins with a death. We're not sure who got, but then we go back to the beginning of the trip and see what led to those final moments. So Cassie, let's start things off with you. How did you feel about the way this show kicked off?
I thought it was visually just stunning. It was so pretty. And I just wish we had seen who got killed because everyone else we meet is so unlikable that I want to know which one we got.
Well, I mean, Nicole, look, we were talking about like how in every season, like the first season is in Maui, the second season is in Sicily. Koh Samui is now the focus point in season 3, and that makes this the first season set in Asia. And as Cassie said, it's so beautiful, to kick these locations. So talk to me though, Nicole, why these locations are so essential to the story.
I have this obsession with how tourists behave in particular locations because I think that they're being sold a fantasy and they refuse to let go of it. And I think that really comes through in White Lotus through all of these locations where it's where people's fantasies come alive and you could either snap out of it or not. And I think that's really a result of colonialism and the way that we really idealize our vacation spots as a place where everything that happens there stays there. So yeah, I think, to Cassie's point about everyone being unlikable, I think that's probably why we're seeing so many unlikable people.
Yeah, can I add, I love that the one set in Thailand has such a strong theme of being peaceful and meditative and coming into your own, and you see all these white people that are absolute messes coming in here trying to cosplay being calm.
They just bring the chaos.
Yeah.
Cassie, if there was a memeable moment in this first episode, I mean, I'm thinking it's this scene at the bar between these two women.
Yeah, you'll notice a lot of bald white guys in Thailand.
Yeah.
The locals call them LBHs. Losers back home.
So LBHs, losers back home, bit of local slang from Thailand. Cassie, what do we take away from that scene?
I mean, that's so funny. That's so funny. This happens all over East Asia. I don't know about elsewhere, but it's very common that guys who can't get laid in the Western world will go we'll go find a submissive Asian girl, and then they rob them for all their money. But I think that it actually shows not just that's like kind of the culture of the tourism that they're walking in. But I think everyone that's at the White Lotus is a loser back home. I think that's kind of the thing, that all of these white guests are so up their own asses and they're so into themselves and they think they're so important. And everyone, especially the staff, they're so down to earth. They're so like that Mook at the beginning, she like can't get her motorbike to work. Like they're just trying to get through their lives, and they understand that they're not intimidated by any of these white guests. They all know that they're all losers back home.
Well, look, Nicole, like this show has a big ensemble cast. There's a lot of storylines to follow. Which of the characters are you most interested in?
I'm super interested in the student who wants to interview the monk, and like she hasn't actually set up the meeting. I'm very interested into how that's going to play out, because I feel like, you know, I live in Rio, which is a place that a lot of gringos come to, and they do very similar things. Like they'll be like, oh, I'm going to go to Rio and I'm going to do some research. And then it's like, who are you going to talk to? Like, you don't know anyone local. And so like, I'm really excited to see how that's going to develop. And then her dad is very shady. Mr. Draco Malfoy. I mean, Mr. Malfoy originally. But her dad,
Mr. Malfoy from Harry Potter is
Mr. Malfoy
here.
is a little shady. So I'm kind of interested in how that's going to play out. Also because like the family on vacation dynamic is obviously always fascinating.
Right. I feel so. If this is Mr. Malfoy on vacation, does that mean the character that's played by Arnold Schwarzenegger's son, Patrick Schwarzenegger, is Lucius Malfoy? Like, is that like? I mean, I feel like that dynamic is being set up.
He's evil enough for it, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, look, Cassie. I mean, you mentioned who I think is your favorite character already, Mook. Who's by the way, so she's a member of the hotel staff you were talking about earlier, but she's also she's played by the pop star Lisa from.
I know.
Okay, for those who don't know, Lisa is from the girl group Blackpink. So what do we need to know about Lisa and then this performance?
I mean, I was trying to place her because she's excellent. She's like the biggest idol there is, and she's so beautiful. She's on Instagram like dancing and wearing feathers and stuff like that. And then on the show, she's just some Thai girl. She's like, can't get her motorbike to run. She has to work at this resort waiting on these white people. I was like, who is that? She's so plain and unglamorous. Give her an Oscar just for being able to play normal. Oh my God. She has so much like charisma. I think she's so lovely. She's obviously the only character in the show so far that's like, she's just like happy to be there. Everybody else is like struggling with their lives, and she's like, oh, it's okay, no worries.
Yeah, I didn't even register. I would not know who that pop star is, so that just adds a new layer of when I go back and look at that episode and the upcoming episodes.
I feel like that makes so much sense though, because she's like in an all Asian group. I actually think that they're like a Korean group or something. I'm so sorry if I'm not up with the Gen Zs.
The K-pop,
but like. Yeah, but it's not. I'm pretty sure it's not a fully Thai group. So she's just a Thai idol, and given that they're setting it there, I think it's amazing that they got her, and she's so good. And she's like super fluent in English and everything. I think it's amazing that they got her. I think this is her first acting thing. I don't know that she's been in acting things before.
Amazing. Okay, so you're listening to Commotion, and I'm Rad Simonpillai sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. A new season of White Lotus just dropped. Cassie Cao is here. Nicole Froio is here. We're talking about it. Nicole, look, the White Lotus has constantly been this satire about power, okay? The first season of Maui was about the power of money. The second season in Sicily explored the power of sex. It's too early to say what this new season is really taking on, but why do you think the satirical take on power and class is resonating today?
I think that we are living in a political hellscape where rich people are ruining everyone's lives, and so that becomes like a very easy way to kind of appeal to large audiences. I actually was thinking about how it's kind of like the Black Mirror of its time, where like, you know, things about class and billionaires and millionaires and colonization, climate change, and like the class difference between who suffers and who doesn't, like is becoming very obvious. And so White Lotus comes in this like zeitgeist where we need to kind of like really visualize what's going on. And I think that it really delivers that visual and, you know, how it really feels to be just like under the boot of billionaires in this world, especially if you live in the global south.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even like the first season, I think, landed during the pandemic, and it really kind of captured the zeitgeist in terms of this eat the rich moment where, you know, we loved obsessing over and hate watching celebrities and rich people. Like I'm thinking of, it was part of that moment with Parasite had just won Best Picture at the Oscars, and then, you know, Succession, of course, we're following along, and movies like The Menu and stuff. So yeah, it's of that moment. But here's the thing, Cassie. A lot of critics feel like this season has been kind of slow to start. Do you agree? What do you think?
Okay, this is what I want to give it more credit, just because I've only seen this first episode, but I want to think that it's part of the form of the season, because I think that we're really highlighting this like meditative, like calm kind of through line, and seeing how everybody's like their internal struggles are going to unravel and clash against this image that they're putting up. So I want to think that the slowness, the calmness of the first episode and potentially the whole season is like reflective of the form of the underlying turmoil of the characters. That would be pretty good if that was it, right?
I love it. I mean, it's like, because I've seen 3 episodes and I'm like, it doesn't pick up. Okay. But now you're like, oh yes, it's like embrace the Zen.
I think so. I think it's gonna get to the final episode. It's gonna hit you with like a form climax. And you're gonna be like, oh, I was lulled into this false sense of security, and then all hell breaks loose right at the end.
Yeah. Well, I will say, and also, like, I mean, the critics who have seen more episodes sound like they're like, oh yeah, it pays off. Well, just hold on. But Nicole, like, and before we get there, like, I mean, there are 7 more episodes of The White Lotus to go, each of them coming out weekly. Are you invested?
I'm so invested. I love White Lotus. Like, I'm a really, really big fan. Honestly, like the last few, as you said, like I really, really enjoy this kind of satire about power. And as I also said before, like I am like obsessed with this idea of people going to a destination and like being a complete different version of themselves because they just spend like the whole year working, and then it's just like, who am I in this destination that has been like a fantasy for me to get here like the whole year. So I think, yeah, I'm really hyped. I'm really excited to see what they're gonna do with the location, with the racial aspect of the oppression they're looking at. Yeah, I'm excited. Okay.
Well, I mean, Cassie, you started us off by saying like, oh God, I don't know who's dying, who is it, who's gonna get it? But I
want to know.
Like, out of all these people we can't stand, like which one? My question is,
I have theories.
You have theories. Well, okay, you can give me them all. You got, I got just admit it to you, but like, who? First of all, who gets got? But also, who do you think is the murderer?
Oh, who's the murderer? I want Mook to be the murderer. First of all, I don't care what where the story is going, but I want her to be a murderer, and I think she could do it. But also, I want it to be the finance bro kid, the eldest son,
who gets got,
Patrick Schwarzenegger. Yeah, who does? Because he's the worst. Before I was a comedian, I was an economist, and I worked on Bay Street, and I worked with him. I worked with a lot of him in my office, and he's so good. Like, he's so hateable in an accurate way. It's so weird. And he's just like such a loser. He keeps getting rejected by everybody. And he's like, I'm hot shit. It's the worst. He's the worst.
I feel like this is like the opportunity for him to like then somehow win our hearts over 8 episodes. That's why the season takes so long. We're slowly getting to him. Nicole, just
I will be so angry if he turns out to be like that.
Nicole, just 20 seconds to you. Like, what do you think? Do you think he's the one that gets got, or do you have alternative theories?
I hope that he's the one who gets got, and I don't know who the shooter is, but you know, I defend. If it was him who died, I defend the shooter. Like, I'm on his side. I'm on the side of the shooter.
It's gonna be Mook, because she was eyeing those like security guards, and she was like, "They're so tough," and she's thinking, "I could do it too."
I love it. I'm loving it even more now. So we got to leave it there. Cassie Cao, Nicole, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Nicole Froio is a culture critic in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Cassie Cao is a comedian in Toronto. You could start watching the 3rd season of The White Lotus now on Crave. I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, so look, even if you don't care about hockey, you might be feeling compelled to tune in for tomorrow night's Four Nations final. Because at a time like this, Canada versus the United States, it just feels like so much more than a hockey game.
They're going to drop the gloves right away. Matthew Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel right off the hop. The tone's been set. Has it ever? You talk about a rivalry, Canadian against American.
That was from last Saturday's game, which featured three separate fights in the first 9 seconds of the game. Dave Bidini is a musician. He's also written and made films about hockey and its cultural place in the world. And he's also a hockey player. And he's with me now to gauge the temperature ahead of tomorrow's game and why it's so easy to project bigger stories onto this spectacle on ice. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Rad. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So look, let's start with that clip that we just heard from the qualifying game. What was going on in your head watching those opening minutes?
I mean, I think like a lot of us, my jaw was on the floor seeing the game start the way it did. After that, initial kind of like hot moment of excitement and violence, in hindsight, I found it really ugly, Rad. I think the game has tried to push itself into a place where fighting is not part of the fabric. There aren't fights in the NHL anymore. I had a bit of like 1974 PS post-traumatic ripples because of the ugly nature of fighting, the ugly nature of violence. I think the Americans, I think the Tkachuk brothers are thugs. I think they tried to throw the game into the ditch. Hockey doesn't have to live in the ditch. Hockey can be a beautiful game. And like I said, the game's kind of pointed towards that and made a lot of steps. And I think it set the game back years. That's what happened.
Well, and then look, now we got, of course, after Canada lost to the United States, Donald Trump inserted himself here. He posted a photo of himself in a U.S. hockey jersey. What was your reaction to that? Yeah.
The notion of Donald Trump on the ice is absurd. It ain't golf. I mean, you got to skate, you got to work hard to get to that puck. There are no golf carts on the ice. The idea of that guy in a hockey sweater playing our game is absurd. He's opportunistic in the worst way. And, the less there is of Donald Trump in the realm of the things that we love, the better as far as I'm concerned.
Well, then how do you feel about general manager? I mean, let me recap this. So the general manager of the U.S. team has invited Donald Trump to tomorrow night's game. And so it feels like, at least for now, that hockey is more overtly political. So I don't know how you're feeling about that, but also about how you feel about where that leaves the players.
Well, I will say, it's terrible management on the part of Bill Guerin for a couple of reasons. One, the American players have to answer for those comments, right, about him talking about the 51st state and inviting President Trump. These are captains of Canadian hockey teams, right? So if they truly believe that that inspired them to play, then they have to answer to it. You also don't want to give Team Canada bulletin board material either, and I think he did that. And as a general manager of a national side, you want to make sure the waters are calm going into this pressure-filled game, and he just, he created a tide pool of further controversy, bad management, and just bad decisions on his part. To motivate the Canadians to win.
Well, look, in Canada, more people are playing hockey, okay? And basketball has really been gaining a lot of traction here, but yet hockey still has this reputation as Canada's national game. So has there ever been more on the line?
It's an important game. It really is, considering, where we're at geopolitically and our understanding of of ourselves as a nation as we relate to the United States. Listen, I think it's pregnant with drama, and it's going to infuse the game. I mean, it's a Thursday night in February. Usually it's Pittsburgh versus Columbus. It's not nation versus nation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that sense, narratively, it's going to inform the experience. It'll be exciting.
And look, like, I mean, I think we constantly do this where we're projecting meaning onto sports games, right? Like, I mean, because they're this cultural sphere, and like as you mentioned, like we're kind of like, you know, geopolitically, we are trying to like make sense of that, and you know, like make sense of like the complicated geopolitical forces, and we're doing that through these games. So, what are you making of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of the sad thing in a way, as you know, too often, you know, we define ourselves against the United States. You know, we measure ourselves against against our neighbors, and I think, you know, just in terms of being a self-determined culture, it's better if we just kind of, you know, cut our own path. And I think I think the future points towards that, and I do think this kind of holds us back a little bit. But listen. You know, they're in our country being as vast and as disparate and as enormous as it is, we don't have a lot of things that really tie us together from coast to coast to coast. Traditionally, hockey has been one of them. There are other sports and other, you know, great sporting cultures that are emerging, whether it's soccer or basketball and on, and certainly women's hockey. But it's still one of the things that is part of the fabric. And it's still, you know, we're all going to be, you know, from Queen Charlotte Islands to the Avalon Peninsula, we're all going to be tuning in and watching this thing together. And I think that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, look, like we've been seeing, of course, a lot of these games, like Canadian fans booing the U.S. national anthem. And right, like that's become a regular thing lately. And some people are calling that our patriotic duty, and others are saying this has no place in the game. Where are you standing on that?
I think it's a form of nonviolent expression. I think it's okay. I think booing's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would do it necessarily, but yeah, I think it's a relatively gentle way of telling the world how we feel.
Mm-hmm. And so, do you have a prediction for tomorrow night's game?
I'm terrible at predictions, so I'm just going to say 8-7 Canada, because that's not even come close to that. Yeah, so I don't know who's going to win. Listen, it could be the Americans' time too. It's a great generation, and one of the things that gets lost is kind of the brutish comments by Bill Guerin and the behavior of the Tkachuk brothers is how many amazing people are doing great grassroots things for American hockey in unlikely parts of that country. And so, listen, I want Canada to win, and I hope it's a great game, and I hope nobody fights.
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't turn into Canadian Bacon for anyone who hasn't seen that movie. That's where like an actual war breaks out in the U.S. and Canada after a fight at a hockey game, right? So very prescient movie.
Possible, my friend. That's true.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dave, for being here and talking to me about this.
Okay, buddy. Cheers.
So Dave Bidini is a musician, writer, filmmaker, and hockey player. The Puck drops tomorrow night on Sportsnet at 8 p.m. Eastern.